Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Alexander Volkanovski to defeat Ilia Topuria. Because of, why was it again? Leg kicks and something about experience. And you gotta remember, this guy's never lost at featherweight. Keep that in mind. Alright, I'm here to recap UFC 298. I'm going to start at the top with Ilia Topuria winning the featherweight title, becoming the best featherweight on the planet, and doing so in emphatic fashion. Gets an all-time classic highlight reel knockout, and is the second man to knock Volkanovski out in the last 3 or 4 months. But I'll get to my doubt in Volkanovski and him taking the fight and the decision-making, all that horse shit in a minute. But here I have to praise Ilia Topuria because he didn't just steamroll Volkanovski and knock him out. I mean, I guess generally that's what happened, but they fought for a good 7-8 minutes, and I think Ilia Topuria looked great. I thought that fight was very close up until the knockout. I did think Volkanovski was getting off with his kicks and was definitely having success. I'd have to rewatch it to see who I scored the first round for. But my point is, Ilia Topuria, if the fight went 25 minutes, he's somebody who can stand with a guy like Volkanovski. I think he's of that caliber with Volkanovski and Holloway, and he's very much in a point fight with no big moments. I think he's just that good. But with big moments, that's his fight too. Definitely. And that's what happened here last night. There was a big moment, and he shut the lights out on Alexander Volkanovski. He was gaining on him and cornering him, and he finally pounced on him and clipped him with a short right hand that shut the lights out. And then a few more punches. But one punch got it done. And again, I will get to my doubt in Volkanovski and his durability, but no doubt about it, Ilia Topuria's got that power to knock anybody out, with a compromised chin or not. He just hits that fucking hard, and you could make excuses for his knockout victims. Jai Herbert's got a weak chin, and Alexander Volkanovski was compromised and whatever, but the power is visible, especially that Jai Herbert knockout. This guy hits like a fucking freight train, and he's a problem on that level for any featherweight. And for anybody with any sort of doubt or whatever in his durability, like Volkanovski, Topuria is just probably going to be too much. And that was the case. He was too much. And Volkanovski now has 2 knockout losses in the last 4 months. And he's closer to 40 than he is to 30. And everything going against him. This was a pivotal loss, and it sucks. He's still one of the best fighters of all time, and he's still the best featherweight of all time, as of now. Of course, everything's fucking pending. But this changes his profile in a big way. It's his first loss at featherweight, and there's no controversy about this one. The lights were shut out. And his profile now is a fighter with serious durability issues. He's gunning for that rematch, which he'll chase Topuria to Spain to do it sounds like, but I don't like it. I mean, unless it's in a year or whatever, and even then, I'm still not going to like it because he's only going to be older. I just think, I'm thinking he never reaches the title again. I don't think he's going to go through somebody like Ilia Topuria. However, Max Holloway beats Justin Gaethje, even if he doesn't, but Max gets a shot at Topuria. The landscape could change and Volkanovski could still be in the title picture. But this guy, Ilia Topuria, I think he is a problem for anybody. Max Holloway, certainly Volkanovski included. And I think he's going to be the champion for a while. Although there are these Movsar Evloevs that are creeping around the corner. That could always bring an interesting matchup. But Topuria looks like the perfect fighter. And again, his grappling is his best asset, and that's kind of fallen to the wayside as he's become this knockout artist at the UFC level, and I think that's where things are trending. But the guy can do it all, and I think he's got a way to go through every featherweight in the division. And he's the first guy to do this to Volk, the first featherweight to do this to Volk, and what a way to start his title reign, beating the GOAT, and doing so like that. So this guy, we might be talking about him like he's the GOAT or whatever. But yeah, the fucking future's bright, no doubt. And for Volkanovski, I do hope to see him take some time off. He can't come back unless he's fighting fucking, I don't know, Bryce Mitchell maybe or something. But even there, it's just his chin is, it's a liability at this point. And it's only going to get worse. He's either got to wait till he's 36 and a little older and slower and healthier with the chin, or come back with a compromised chin and get knocked out again. Yeah, it's a shitty position to be in for a guy that was just on top of the world not long ago, but it's the position he's in, and he's got to be smart about it. So hopefully he takes his fucking time. That brings me to Rob Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. This was a very close fight. I thought this was a very, very close, fun, competitive fight. Every round was close, but I did think Whittaker won. I thought Whittaker was generally a step ahead throughout the whole fight, although I do think Paulo Costa stole round one in the final 10 seconds there with a spinning back kick, hook kick, check kick, wheel kick, whatever, and it visibly rocked Robert Whittaker, and he stole the round. But in general, I thought Whittaker was a step ahead. I thought he was a step ahead. I thought that lead left hand was doing wonders for him with the hook and the jab, of course. And I thought his kicks were better than Costa's, too. I thought Costa looked tough, looked game, but again, looked a step behind. And I love seeing Paulo Costa fight. I wish he would fight more often, come visit us more frequently than the fucking locusts. But, whatever. This is his prime. He still fought a lot of the best fighters in the division. And he's been a step behind the better fighters in the division. I think he can still make things happen. But so far, that's his profile. He's a middle of the pack, top 10 or even top 5 middleweight. But he can't win the big one. And this one would have been the big one here. Very close fight. He could have won it, but I had Robert Whittaker winning, and I'm glad the decision went his way. For Robert Whittaker, he's in a tough spot, of course, having lost to Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis via finish. But Robert Whittaker could very well be in a high-profile fight, 5 rounds against Sean Strickland next. That sounds good to me. Whatever the hell he's doing, he's still in the mix, and he's still in his fighting prime. So, really good, hard-fought victory for Robert Whittaker, doing what he needs to do. And for Paulo Costa, it's another one of these losses that he looked really good in. But after some time, all people are going to see is the loss. So, tough spot. Ian Garry beat Jeff Neal. This was a pretty clear victory, in my opinion, although I think some people thought it was a pretty close fight. And it was a pretty close fight, but I didn't think the scorecards were that close. I thought Ian Garry definitely won. I thought Jeff Neal was competitive, especially early on. But in general, he was not able to get through the range of Ian Garry. Ian Garry kept him on the outside and kept it a boring fight. Took away the danger of Jeff Neal pretty comfortably throughout the fight, and was also pretty comfortably, in my opinion, leading the dance. I thought it would have been a robbery if he lost the fight. But I think it was a unanimous decision. Either way, some people think Jeff Neal won or whatever. It was pretty close. I don't. I thought Ian Garry looked really good, but he didn't look phenomenal. He didn't put a stamp on things. And in the end, he beat a really good guy. He gets a lot of credit for that. But this fight is not memorable. Not a lot happened here. And, it wasn't so thrilling, but again, you get into a thrilling fight with Jeff Neal, you're probably going to get knocked out. So he did what he needed to do and got the victory. And for Jeff Neal, he was kind of stuck at the end of Ian Garry's reach. And he, even though I think Ian Garry only has 1 inch of reach on him, but he's much taller and he moves much better. And Jeff Neal wasn't able to make anything happen. He was just stuck in mud a little bit with Ian Garry. Doing much better on the outside. For Jeff Neal, he's still a healthy fighter, and this didn't hurt him physically, but professionally, this hurt him. He's now a step behind Ian Garry, and this is another one of those longer, rangy fighters like Wonder Boy that have kept him at bay and totally neutralized him with their movement and speed. So, Another rough loss for Jeff Neal and for Ian Garry. Yeah, he pissed some people off, and he's going to piss off some more. Merab Dvalishvili beat Henry Cejudo. This was a really fun fight. I thought Henry Cejudo was bringing it to Merab early. I thought there was a chance he was going to use his wrestling and neutralize Merab throughout the whole fight, but he wasn't able to sustain that for all 3 rounds. He had a good round in him, and definitely won round 1. But Merab Dvalishvili is the machine. He's the machine for a reason, and he kept going where Henry Cejudo was falling off a little bit. And in the end, Merab was dominating Henry. He did get him down. He didn't dominate him grappling-wise, but he was able to put a pace on him that Henry couldn't keep up with. And, of course, score some takedowns and mat returns. And just in general, outpoint Henry Cejudo. It was a competitive fight, but not a close fight. I thought that in the end, Merab definitely won, and Henry Cejudo, I believe, retired. He said he would retire earlier in the week, and he took his gloves off here, but he didn't get his moment. The moment was Merab's, as Dana White said. So we'll wait to hear from Cejudo. But Merab Dvalishvili is not retiring. He's fighting for a title in his next fight. I'm pretty sure Dana said it's guaranteed, but regardless, I'm very sure his next fight will be against Sugar Sean O'Malley or Cheeto Vera. And that is fucking awesome that this guy made it there after going 0-2 in the UFC, and now he's on a Costa 10-fight winning streak, and he's beaten champion after Olympic gold medalist, and he may not be the most potent finisher, but you do that enough and you cannot be denied. Merab's got a little more flair than someone like a John Fitch or whatever, and I think he can make the promotion fun, but the fighting's always going to be the same. And Merab Dvalishvili, I still think he can win people over by being a point fighter, just with his pace. I love watching this guy fight. When you watch somebody weaponize cardio like that, it's exciting, especially if you're fucking betting on it. But Merab Dvalishvili will be in a high-profile fight again next, and I can't wait to see it, no matter who it's against. And for Henry, he had an excellent fucking career, if this is it, and there's no shame in going out like he did, but he's going to be haunted by his decision to leave the sport 5 years ago, whatever it was. And that definitely cost him. That brings me to Anthony Fluffy Hernandez beating Roman Kopylov by rear naked choke in round 2. This was it's always going to be a fun fight with these guys. These guys are potent finishers. I thought they kind of plugged into each other's weaknesses, and it was going to go one way or the other. And Anthony Fluffy Hernandez made that his fight. He had some moments that were a little dicey on the feet, but he just kept pressuring Roman Kopylov, kept pressuring him. And he put Roman on the back foot, eventually put him on the ground, and took some of the life out of him, and eventually got him out of there with a submission in round 2. Once Fluffy's able to get you to the ground, he's going to keep getting you to the ground. You know, he's not he's not the strongest fighter, and he won't ever have the best control, but he will always have the best pace. He's somebody who weaponizes cardio, just like Merab. And at the UFC level, it's been finish after finish down the stretch, rounds 2 and 3. And this was another example of that. Big win for Fluffy Hernandez, who's now got a 5-fight winning streak and I think 4 finishes. And I think all 4 finishes are in rounds 2 or 3. But very fun, dangerous fighter, Fluffy Hernandez. And Roman Kopylov too, but this was another example of him being generally weak on the ground. He's had some potentially favorable matchups and delivered on the results. But here he had a tough matchup, and it was a reminder that he's not a perfect fighter. Speaking of which, Mackenzie Dern is not a perfect fighter. She lost to Amanda Lemos, but Mackenzie Dern is a very tough fighter. And I thought, even though she definitely lost the fight, I thought this helped get some of that shitty taste of the Jessica Andrade fight out of my mouth or her mouth or whatever. I don't know. Something with taste. Either way, Mackenzie Dern looked really tough in this fight. Really game and really going for it down the stretch after being hurt. And I thought she was finished at one point in round 2 or whatever. But Amanda Lemos, who, like I said, in the pre-fight video, on the spectrum of power and technique and whatever, she's much closer to Jessica Andrade as far as that danger goes than any other fighter that's beaten Mackenzie Dern, Amanda Hebosh, and Marina Rodriguez, whoever else. But she's very dangerous, and she beat the shit out of Mackenzie Dern, and Mackenzie Dern showed that toughness. This girl is pretty, she's hot, as Bobby Green said, sheesh, when she was weighing in. My lord, those legs. But either way, she is tougher than she is hot. She's very fucking tough, Mackenzie Dern, and very competitive. And I thought this was a great spirited performance, but she was outpointed by Amanda Lemos, who, I got to give Amanda Lemos credit too. Even though she beat up Mackenzie Dern, and, when you do your best work early and your worst work later in the fight, I guess you could say it's never a good look or whatever, like Leon Edwards and Colby Covington. But I was still impressed with Amanda Lemos not getting finished down the stretch and keeping herself safe against a fighter like Mackenzie Dern, even a beaten-up fighter like Mackenzie Dern. Amanda Lemos is no slouch at any spot. She's got a lot of heart at any spot in the fight, and she looked really good here, beating Mackenzie Dern in a very close, competitive, dangerous fight. I think that got fight of the night, and fucking well-deserved. Marcos Rogerio de Lima beat Junior Tafa by TKO with leg kicks. Junior Tafa, credit to him for stepping up. This guy stepped up on a day's notice, replacing his brother. Incredible balls to do that, especially fighting a guy like Marcos, who I think on paper is a pretty bad matchup for limited fighters like the Tafas. And he gave it a go, but it was a pretty bad matchup. Marcos Rogerio de Lima just had him outgunned everywhere, but maybe with the hands at range. And Marcos was beating him up, chopping him down, and eventually got a TKO with a leg kick. One kick sat him down, and that was it. Marcos didn't even really pounce on him, I don't think. And the fight was over. He's got gigantic legs. The guy kicks like a fucking mule. And Junior Tafa, he's more mobile than his brother. But he is not as powerful, and his legs are probably half as big, as thick. And he got his legs chopped down here. Credit to him for stepping up, but credit to Marcos Rogerio de Lima for taking the fight on short notice, because he didn't have to accept this fight, even though it was a similar matchup and whatever the fuck else. Still a curveball. And also credit to him for doing what he needed to do and getting another finish. Marcos Rogerio de Lima is a potent finisher. And he found the hole in Junior Tafa pretty quickly and found the finish not long afterwards. Brings me to Rinya Nakamura, dominating Carlos Vera. Rinya Nakamura is an awesome fighter. I've described him as Henry Cejudo. And I still think his ceiling is Henry Cejudo. But they're not always going to be dominant. Well, they might always be dominant, but they're not all going to be finishes. This guy's proven a few times he can go the distance, fight a hard 15 minutes, and this was just another example of that. I think it's a good feather in his cap. This guy, Carlos Vera, is a good fighter, but he was really up against it here against Rinya. This was Rinya's fight to lose, and he didn't lose it, but he didn't put a stamp on it and get the finish. He seemed disappointed in himself, but I still consider him one of the very best prospects in the UFC. Guy's looking perfect, and this was another example of that. And for Carlos Vera, he'll give it another go. He looked tough in defeat, but he still looked limited and really up against it against Rinya Nakamura. Mingyang Zhang knocked out Brenson Ribieiro. This was a violent finish early. These are two guys that even with the win, I will have doubts about Mingyang Zhang, and I certainly have doubts about Brenson Ribieiro, just because they've been finished quite a few times each before getting to the UFC. But Mingyang Zhang certainly is a dangerous guy. Both guys are dangerous, but Mingyang Zhang is a 25-year-old. All those losses are when he was 20 years old or earlier. So it could be a case of Natalia Silva where he turns a corner. And here he did what he needed to do. There was a few holes in Brenson Ribieiro, in my opinion, and Mingyang Zhang found one very early, like fucking a minute or whatever, and shut the lights out. Really excited to see him, because he's a young kid who's very dangerous, and I like glass cannons. I like guys where if you beat them, they're getting finished as well. Just makes for an exciting fight. So I hope to see him make a return pretty quickly. I'm assuming he's still healthy, unless he broke his hand. And, yeah, 25-year-old with fucking size and danger. Welcome to the UFC. And for Brenton Ribieiro, he'll be back. He's 27 and he's big and dangerous, but he's vulnerable. And this certainly didn't help his profile there. He's got a potential weak chin there, for sure. Danny Barlow beat Josh Quinlan by TKO in round 3. I thought Danny Barlow looked really good in this fight. I picked him to win. I bet on him to win, but I also bet on him to win by decision. Some what I thought were pretty long odds, and almost hit it, but he took that away with his danger in round 3. And he caught Josh Quinlan with a big shot in the middle of the octagon and dropped him, and he did so after beating him up pretty comfortably. I thought Danny Barlow was ahead 2 rounds. Josh Quinlan was a step behind, just like he was against Trey Waters. Danny Barlow does have maybe even more reach than Trey Waters. He had a significant reach advantage here, and I thought he was doing really well fighting on the outside, controlling the fight, and that left hand was the story. And Josh Quinlan wasn't able to adapt for the second fight in a row here. And not only did he lose most of the fight and was thoroughly outpointed, but in the end, points weren't needed because he got put out. Great win for Danny Barlow, another finish for him, and a finish down the stretch, round 3 in his UFC debut. That is a really good look for him. So excited to see him back. Hopefully his left hand is pretty healthy, and he'll be back soon. Oban Elliott beat Val Woodburn. This was largely a dominant fight for Oban Elliott. I thought he had a dicey moment in the first minute. Val Woodburn rocked him. I think had him a little shaky. But Oban Elliott was able to neutralize Val Woodburn. Shot in tight and was all over him, going for a takedown. And eventually just worked him over. Not to the point of getting a finish, although he came close, very, very close, many, many times. But he was just largely dominant over Val Woodburn, who proved to be very difficult to put away. Val had good choke defense, spent half the fight fighting hands, and maybe over half the fight with Oban Elliott sitting on top of him with 2 hooks. But Val Woodburn's big, strong little bowling ball, and he kept himself safe, and he showed he can take an ass kicking for 15 minutes. I don't think this makes him look like the best fighter, and I don't think he's long for the UFC, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be given another shot, and this was certainly a better look than getting knocked dead in 30 seconds by Bo Nickel. And for Oban Elliott, he looked really good here. He got rid of that danger early on from Val Woodburn and controlled him. Wasn't able to secure the finish, but kept working and securing dominant position after dominant position, and showed he could do so for 15 minutes. So, a good debut for him. Maybe not a great debut, but a good debut. And for Val Woodburn, he looked better in defeat than he did last time. That's my fucking takeaway there. And that brings me to Miranda Maverick taking out Andrea Lee. Andrea Lee, who was a step behind Miranda Maverick pretty much throughout this whole fight, aside from the first 2 minutes. I thought she looked really good in the first 2 minutes. Took Miranda Maverick down, hit her with a big German suplex, and then kind of was a step behind after that. I thought despite her success early, she still lost round 1 because Miranda Maverick hit her with like 10 left hands inside round 1. And after that, it was still Andrea Lee being a step behind. She was going for it in the end. I believe she she tried to lock up a triangle. I think that was the one where the triangle was the wrong way. It was really closer to an omoplata. But the commentators were half losing their shit. So it was a moment. But I think 2 of the judges still gave that every round to Miranda Maverick. Miranda Maverick won 30-27 twice and 29-28, I believe. It was definitely her fight. She controlled the pace. She controlled the striking and the grappling, generally speaking. And Andrea Lee, 4 consecutive losses now, she ran into a wall, wasn't able to overcome it, wasn't able to get over it, and wasn't able to make shit happen, despite making an effort. So, tough loss for her. She might be axed. I don't know. And for Miranda Maverick, another well-earned, well-fought decision victory for Miranda Maverick. So, good on her. Still young and still fucking kicking ass. Overall, this was a very good event. A lot of decisions on the main card and whatever, but I still enjoyed every one of those fights, aside from Ian Garry versus Jeff Neal so much, even though Ian Garry still won money for me. But Ilia Topuria is the story of this fight now, the story of this night. Ilia Topuria, this will be the night he knocked out Alexander Volkanovski. It's a highlight for the ages. It's a historical fight, and it was fucking awesome, although sad at the same time. I love the prospect of Ilia Topuria. I love the thought of him being the undefeated champion. All this shit I was saying in the pre-fight video. That's what made this such a special title fight, is the fact that the challenger's undefeated and looks perfect. But at the same time, I'm very sad for Alexander Volkanovski, because Volkanovski was just that guy. For the last 5 years, he was the best fighter on the planet. One of them, certainly the best featherweight. And he looked damn near perfect himself up until the last 4 months. And it sucks to watch that happen to a guy like Volk. But whatever, this is MMA. Every fucking fight is consequential. Every fight is gigantic. And they can't all go your way. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.